I think I officially have a favorite Marvel film. If you have seen any of my recent uploads, you may be aware that I'm currently on a Marvel journey where I am finally giving Marvel a chance and watching them from the beginning. I'm currently up to the end of phase one, which is, of course, the 2012 film The Avengers, which was directed by Joss Whedon and stars, well, quite frankly, who doesn't it star? We'll talk about that when we talk about the characters. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the narrative because I'm going to assume that most people have seen this. I am aware that I'm very behind with Marvel, and 10 years now. It is 2022 now. 10 years behind with these films, but just the ones that I'd watched, I never really fell in love with. So I never really found a film that made me want to watch them all. But just because I want to make more of an effort with them, I decided to start watching them. Having reached the Avengers, I can finally say, I get it. I get the appeal. The films will never be my all-time favourites because I'm not the biggest fan of sci-fi, not the biggest fan of action films. You can kind of see why they were never that, I was never that drawn to them. But the Avengers is pretty great. And the reason I love this most is the dialogue between the Avengers. It's just amazing. But very briefly, if you're unaware of what this is about, this may contain spoilers for the previous films, but that's kind of a given. Loki is waging war against Earth, and the Avengers all have to come together and resolve their own differences. There's a lot of bickering going on to stand up against Loki. And I didn't know that Loki was back for this. Loki is a character, I think Tom Hiddleston is fantastic. Loki as a character, sometimes I think, yes, he's a fantastic villain, really complex, really interested in him. And all because he was not the birth son. There's so much complex analysis you could do with this character. But at the same time, I thought, do I really want Loki back? Well, by the end of this film, yes, I thought it worked fantastically well. The Avengers are our superheroes from the previous films, all working together to try and avenge Loki. And the characters themselves are obviously fantastic. Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, Chris Evans as Captain America, Mark Ruffalo as Hulk. It wasn't until this film that I looked at the Hulk as a character and thought, you have the potential of being one of my favourite superheroes. There was just something about him in this film. I have seen a few Hulk films before. Definitely one, maybe two, if I remember correctly. But in this one, I just thought, you're fantastic. And I thoroughly enjoyed Mark Ruffalo's performance as Bruce Banner, and particularly as Bruce Banner, but also, of course, as Hulk. Chris Hemsworth as Thor, and of course Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow. What I really liked about Thor in this one is he really stood out as being from a different, well, I was going to say a different time zone, but I mean a different zone completely. Kind of the same with Steve Rogers, Captain America, because obviously he is from a different time zone and is still, well, he's not still getting to grips with the 21st century, but you can tell sometimes there are things that are a bit more alien to him still. Obviously not the case with Tony Stark and Bruce Banner. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. The development of the narrative took a little while to get going. The film is, of course, it's over 2 hours. It's a Marvel film. I'd say the first 45 minutes dragged a little bit for me. There wasn't very much to hold my attention for the first, definitely not the first half, definitely less than that. But then once it got going, and once the Avengers had assembled, it became really interesting. And I was so fascinated with just the relationship between them and what they were going to be bringing to this, and the dialogue. I just thought they were fantastic. Very funny. Marvel films are a lot funnier than DC films. While I'm a DC girl at heart, I will say that Marvel films blend in comedy much more expertly. But I didn't expect this one to be quite as funny as it is. The dialogue is quite dry at times, the humour is dry, and the dialogue is brilliant. And it made me laugh quite a lot, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Kobe Smulders was brilliant, Samuel L. Jackson absolutely fantastic, of course, and then Tom Hiddleston as Loki. I really liked it. I thought it was quite easy to follow. The whole thing with the Tesseract, it took me a little while to follow it. When they start saying these really weird sci-fi phrases and start incorporating sci-fi into it, I get a bit more confused within the universe. That's the kind of thing that will take a couple of watches or a couple of mentions for me to fully get my head around. I won't tell you how long it took me to wrap my head around the concept of S.H.I.E.L.D. But once I get it, I really liked it. Once this film got going, thoroughly enjoyed it. Obviously, the special effects were amazing. I thought the soundtrack was absolutely brilliant. Music is by Alan Silvestri. I can't fault it. Really, really pleased that this is how Phase 1 ends because I thought it was brilliant. Definitely, so far, my favourite Marvel film. Still quite a lot to go. Still a lot of contenders. But for me, for now, The Avengers is one that I'm happy to say is a Marvel film I truly, thoroughly enjoyed.